Our lecturer was busy taking care of her dog Lily, but she's full on with us now. A couple housekeeping issues before we get started. The live audience will be muted. This is in no way a sense that your questions are discouraged. I'll just be monitoring if you can type those questions into the chat box, and I'll monitor those and we'll ask those. I may batch them together since we have a lot of information to cover. The other thing is, as you probably just heard, we'll be recording this, and this lecture will be with all the slides available on the Cancer Survivors Park website, which is Cancer Survivors Park, all one word, .org. Also present on that website is our lectures for the entire 2024 years, as well as the lectures from previous years as you see fit to look at those. But again, we'll be covering a lot of stuff, and you might want to go back and look at these slides again. And if you enjoyed this, please tell your circle of friends that this is available on our website as well. So the aim of this series is to learn more about specific malignancies, to include methods of prevention and screening. One of the most important discussions we can have and must have when overcoming chronic disease is the positive steps, the positive active steps that we can take towards a healthy lifestyle. These are the changes that our population has to make. All the holistic techniques this program recommends have to be evidence-based, and one of the established organizations for research in this field is the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. So we are really honored and pleased to have with us tonight Dr. Cassidy Hood, who did a residency here at Greenville Health System and kind of got in with the ecosystem, which is lifestyle medicine that exists here in the upstate. Dr. Hood is a fellow of the American Academy of Family Practice and is a diplomate and a fellow of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. She's also an instructor at the USC School of Medicine in Greenville, and she's going to talk about the lifestyle medicine approach to reverse and prevent chronic disease, and we're really excited to hear your comments. So carry on.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for the fabulous intro. It's nice to virtually meet everybody. Very excited and passionate about this topic. Lifestyle medicine is such an amazing way where we put the power back in ourselves and truly find ways in which, what can I do to become a healthier person, especially in terms of cancer prevention, and also into somewhat cancer treatment as well. So very excited for this topic. So I cannot take full credit for this PowerPoint. This PowerPoint presentation was made by three fabulous and brilliant minds. We have Jennifer Trilk, Dr. Beth Motley, and Renee, all of them together really tried to say, hey, what research articles should we put in here? What are some great images that can really help stimulate this conversation? But keep in mind that everything that we're presenting today is coming from the American College of Lifestyle Medicine and the updated research in which we have. Just some general objectives that we're going to be talking about today. More specifically, what are some foods, different activities, and really environmental stimuli that might be going on that can really help with prevention of cancer and also in some terms treat it as well. Why and how some of these factors that are around us can maybe lead to cancer or increase our risk of cancer, and really talk about what the American Cancer Society's recommendations are, but also bring in the American College of Lifestyle Medicine as well. Okay, let's get started. So when people talk about cancer, we in a sense trying to think about the different types of causes of that. So in terms of what is coming into the body that could be high risk of cancer, what could be happening inside of our body, which can then increase our risk of cancer, and then what do we have going on in our body that is not helping us protect us from cancer. And so the American College of Lifestyle Medicine really tries to hit kind of each one of those points in terms of cancer prevention. So if we take a look at some common themes that's floating around out there on cancer, well, age, right? So that can definitely be a part of cancer risk as well. And of course, we can't control our age, right? That just happens with time. But as you can see, the other list of things on here in terms of our weight, sunlight, tobacco exposure, alcohol, all these things listed on here, we actually do have a lot of control over as well. So if we take a look at this graph in front of us, age is at the very bottom, youngest on the left, oldest on the right. And then the up and down measurement is in terms of the percentage of new cases of cancer. So as we can see, and this is containing both sexes, both men and women, we can see that around age 45, the rate of cancer and new diagnoses start going up from 5.2% to 14%. That's a pretty large jump. And it looks like the main ages of cancer that we can start seeing here is between 55 to 74, where about really a fourth of the new cases are being discovered here. And then you kind of look towards the end of the graph and you can see that patients who are greater than 84%, 84 years old, you can see here that the rates of new cancer are really on the lower end, about 7.8%. So what that means is that for one, if they're greater than 84 years old, then they have lived a long and happy life and they've escaped cancer, or likely they have passed from other health issues. But at the very least, taking a look at age, we can see that 55 to 74 is where a large portion of our new cancer diagnoses can happen. Now, when people think about cancer, they say, well, doesn't genes, make a big part of this? Absolutely. But if you look at the percentage here at the very top circle, you can see that genes really account for about 5 to 10% of cancer risk, which you're like, wait a minute. So I have a lot of control? Absolutely. About 90 to 95% of most cancers are because of how we live our life. What are our environmental exposures? On the bottom left circle, you see the genetic risk. So yes, the genetic risk is around 5 to 10%, but which cancers have the highest genetic risk? Not all cancers have the same genetic risk. And so you can see that, well, testicular cancer, 8.6% of it is really highly genetic, thyroid, mouth, throat, things like that. And then if you think about it and you look and you say, wait a minute, which ones have the smallest? Breast cancer, prostate cancer, colorectal cancer. My goodness, those are a lot of cancers that we hear about, our neighbors, our friends, our family. And so there's a lot of things we can do. And the bottom right circle kind of shows what environmental factors are really influenced by our behaviors that can increase our risk of cancer. And you look at that biggest chunk there, the green part, that's really about a third, 30 to 35% of some of those cancers can be diet related. That is huge. That is something that we can try to help control.
So Dr. Hood, the blue part of the upper circle, the blue piece of pie, is the amount of cancer that we really inherit.
Correct.
From our
correct
ancestors. Okay.
That have that genetic piece. So the blue
the
part,
vast majority are not.
Correct. Yep. And you can see the genetic piece on the bottom left, and then on the bottom right is more of the environmental piece. And you can see that kind of broken down in the different segments of diet around 30-35%. Tobacco, I mean, that's a quarter to a third. And you can see other things in there as well that can be contributing to. So again, just because our father or grandfather had colon cancer doesn't necessarily mean that, well, I can't do anything about it. There's still a lot of things that we can do to really help lower our own risk of getting colon cancer as well, for example. Taking a look here in terms of deaths, cancer deaths attributable to these types of organ-based systems. In other words, men is in the red, blue is the women. And you can see that, wow, liver cancer are kind of more affected by the man side. And then mouth, throat, our esophagus, which is that kind of feeding tube in our chest going down to our stomach. We can see here that still by age, men and women are having these issues with cancer as well. So again, this is really important for us to really talk about and say, hey, there's things that we can do to help. So alcohol is a big piece of this, just like the last slide showing that alcohol can be affecting our cancer risk. And people say, why? Well, what about alcohol is, so bad here? And so really the main thing is acetaldehyde, and that's that little chemical component in the middle here. And so in the beginning, we initially thought, well, isn't a glass of red wine, at night to unwind okay? I thought it was okay. Well, the more that we study alcohol, the more that we realize that the acetaldehyde is really what we call a carcinogen or carcinogenic, meaning that it increases our risk of cancer cells from being made and produced and replicating here or dividing and multiplying. And so the World Health Organization initially said that, hey, yeah, alcohol is definitely increasing our risk of breast cancer. And then in 2014, they said, well, I guess no amount is safe because every alcohol ounce that we drink, acetaldehyde is a breakdown product of that alcohol. So really, we shouldn't be consuming alcohol because of this breakdown product that then can increase our risk of these types of cancers. If we take a look at other cancers, right, because I think our previous slide was alcohol, but just for kind of mouth, throat, those types of things. If we take a look at more smoking, right, having a look at that, going, wait a minute, alcohol is bad. Got it. Well, okay, I've heard smoking is bad. Sure. But this kind of breaks it down based off of men in the red, women blue. And you can see in the bottom the list of the different cancers. And you can see, well, I thought it was just lung cancer. Well, yes, lung cancer towards the middle is still a big part of cancer deaths from smoking. But there's a lot more than just lung cancer that can be called from exposure to tobacco. So you can see here our kidneys, our bladder, our mouth and throat, our stomach, our pancreas. So again, lots of organs that are affected by smoking. So again, keep in mind if we can limit that or lower that, or even just not start at all, would be fabulous. And a lot of people say, well, okay, yeah, it's bad, but what about secondhand smoke, right? So towards the bottom, they were comparing and said, well, people who are non-smokers, meaning never smoked in their entire life, but they were exposed to cigarette smoke either in the home, in the car, around grandparents, parents, those types of things, unfortunately had a 1.3 times higher risk of lung cancer than people who never had been exposed to cigarette smoke. So great job on not smoking, but it's incredibly important to stay away from those people that do smoke. And they say that when we found out that when we quit smoking, it significantly reduces our risk of lung cancer within that next 5 years of quitting smoking. And so on average, our life is shortened by at least 10 years when we start picking up cigarettes. So Another way is preventing cancer, but also prolonging our life is important with, yeah, and quality. Yes, absolutely. So people think, well, is it the nicotine, or, you know, what's specifically about it? Well, you know, we're not getting too deep in the little chemicals here, but the figure on the right is just showing some of them that's found in smoking. I mean, you can see here that the cigarette itself with tobacco in it, unfortunately, has thousands of different chemicals in it, which we've identified at the very least 60 of them as carcinogens or chemicals that increase our risk of cancer. So again, getting rid of smoking can kind of clear our body from all of those chemicals as well. If you're ever interested in what all of them are, again, we're happy to go into that later, but keep in mind, lots of things going on that increase the risk of having cancer at all of those places that we talked about. And then people said, well, okay, got it. So we'll stay away from alcohol, we'll stay away from cigarettes. But hey, I smoke, you know, my meats on the grill. Well, technically that's smoke exposure. So interestingly enough, they found that meats, you know, beef, pork, chicken, that's cooked in a frying pan, or even an air fryer or a grill at really high temperatures. Unfortunately, that fat in the meat was found to release these chemicals that are listed in the slide here, that can still create those carcinogens that we were talking about inside of the body. They were looking specifically at bacon, and they found that the bacon fumes just from cooking it just on the stove top with oil or butter or those types of things, found that there was 4 times more DNA mutations found in bacon than just beef patties cooked over the stove. So DNA mutations just means that our own genetic material, or our own DNA, started to change, that would then increase our risk of cancer. So in other words, not a good thing to be doing these high temperature grilling and frying and those types of things. More specifically, there were two different studies at that time that said, well, for one, that women who ate more grilled, barbecued, smoked meats had higher risks of breast cancer than women that baked it, for example, or, you know, cooked it in the oven, those types of things. And so another study, as you can see here towards the bottom of the slide, that women that ate their bacon or beef or, you know, steak more on the well done side had 5 times higher risk of getting breast cancer than those people that preferred medium rare. So if you are to eat the red meats, which of course we don't recommend at all, but if we do, highly recommend not doing the highly high cooked smoked meats, barbecued, grilled, those types of things. So in general, if you are going to eat meat, the American Institute for Cancer Research said, hey, maybe eat more vegetables and less meat. If you are going to eat meat, maybe use smaller portion and mix in maybe whole grains or beans. Maybe do some pre-cooking of it first, maybe in a microwave or baking it, trimming some of the fat off, because again, the fat as a part of the meat is really involved in these precancerous fumes that we're inhaling. Now let's move to the second, a couple more pieces of the puzzle here. We did the alcohol, the tobacco, the fumes, and one of those other little chunks of that circle in the previous slide was talking about weight. And so people thought initially that extra weight on our bodies just sat there, that it did nothing, that it was inactive. And we found out that actually fat on our bodies is not dead. It's actually quite alive, and it's involved in a lot of our hormones, and it affects a lot of our different parts of our body. So apparently 14% of cancer deaths in men and 20% in women was potentially accounted for by this extra weight on our bodies. And so this is just a table showing some cancers that they've been starting to link to extra weight on our bodies. So we see here pancreatic cancer, a pancreas cancer, kidney cancer, certain blood cancers, of course, breast and liver cancer. So extra weight on our bodies can be considered harmful. And so, well, how much weight are we talking about here, right? So I get it. If we have extra fat, that's probably not good for me. Well, the orange part of this graph is the overweight, which is considered a BMI or a body mass index between 25 to 29. And obesity, which is the red, is for a BMI or body mass index over 30. And as you can see, that the more weight we end up having on our bodies, the higher rates that we are seeing of cancers, again, of the kidney, the colon, the breast, the liver cancer. So very, very important that, we consider that, hey, maybe we need to get to a healthier weight to lower our risk of these cancers. And so this is just a picture. Some people like to know the little ins and outs of why and how, but basically the fat cells that we have in our body, like I said, are very much alive, and they're secreting a lot of inflammatory markers, which are then starting to change the genetic material in our bodies as well, and slows down certain parts of our cells that are involved in making energy and really working on our cell metabolism. So again, lots of reasons for why we need to start working on getting that extra weight off if we can. Again, this is just a slide for peeps that like to know a little more about why. And again, lots of inflammation and angriness that's happening within the cell changes how our body responds to our own hormones, changes the way that our body responds whenever we eat something, whenever we move, how we think, lots of different things here. So, okay, we talked about that. Well, you mentioned
before you move on from obesity, has the ACLM had any comment about the GPL-1 agonists, the diabetic injections that are being used for weight loss?
Great question. I have not seen the ACLM do any sort of comments on the GLP-1 agonists that are out currently for weight loss. I know the American Diabetes Association and the American Heart Association have been talking about that as well for the reduction of risk of heart attack and stroke, and of course helping with weight loss and increasing our body's sensitivity to our own insulin. So I do know that they've made those connections. I think in general, the American College of Lifestyle Medicine is saying, hey, if we can have that extra fat come off of our bodies, that would also help in cancer prevention. And so far, the GLP-1 agonists, or those weight loss medicines that we see on TV, like Ozempic or Mounjaro, Wegovy, those types of things, can kind of help achieve that goal.
I've been monitoring the audience. We lost a couple people when you said some bad things about bacon.
Oh, sorry. I know I hate to break it to some peeps, but yeah, bacon's not good.
No, it gets better, guys. It's not just deny. Okay.
There's great things in our life, I promise. So diet specifically, this is where we start getting into it and going, okay, I probably shouldn't drink alcohol, probably shouldn't smoke, get extra weight off of our bodies. But there are other things that we can do as well in terms of our diet to really help. Okay, so they found that certain types of cancers have been linked to how we eat, what we fuel our bodies. And so more specifically, if you kind of look towards the center of the graph, we see here that colon cancer, prostate cancer, breast cancer, are really big contenders here. So men, you can't get out of it. Okay, prostate cancer is still a really big piece of this as well. And so now talking about the first topic of diet is cholesterol. So first things first, cholesterol is really a hormone. It's also a fat floating around our body and our bloodstream here. And unfortunately, cholesterol is only found in animal-based foods. What does that mean? Meat, dairy, and eggs. So meat, dairy, and eggs are naturally high in cholesterol. And so, okay, I get it. Cholesterol, we all probably heard from our doctor, is bad. So how does that have to relate to cancer? Well, this is just a picture of the article of one of the studies that was done specifically with breast cancer. And what this showed is that breast cancer cells were using the blood cholesterol floating around to make more estrogen, which was then feeding the blood or feeding the breast cancer cells. And it was also using the cholesterol to reproduce itself, to replicate itself, to then spread through the rest of the breast tissue and potentially throughout the body. So, wow, that's pretty bad, right? So now we're finding that cancer cells like cholesterol. Okay, so cholesterol's bad. You mentioned that meat, dairy, and eggs have cholesterol. So what specifically about dairy? So yes, dairy products like milk, butter, cheese, cream cheese, sour cream, yogurts, those types of things, not only have high amounts of cholesterol, also called saturated fat, but they also contain steroid hormones like estrogen. And so there's actually a really strong link between dairy products and increased breast cancer risk. But like I kind of hinted to earlier, men, you can't escape from this, prostate cancer as well. So there was a study specifically done on prostate cancer cells and dairy products, more specifically milk. And it was found that prostate cancer cells, when exposed to cow's milk, increased the cancer growth rate by approximately 30% versus when it was exposed to almond milk, which is not an animal-based milk, but a plant-based milk, was found that it actually suppressed the growth, meaning decreased the growth of the prostate cancer cells. So, wow, dairy has a big impact on breast cancer, but also prostate cancer. And so the World Health Organization acknowledged this and said, well, okay, meat isn't good, dairy isn't good. And so they started actually labeling processed meats as a group 1 carcinogen, or one of the top carcinogens or known potential cancer risk that we have. And then red meat, everyone kind of talks about red meat, which again, kind of more is the beef, lamb, pork, as a probable carcinogen because of this evidence coming out on the high cholesterol feeding the cancer cells. And of course, with it being smoked, grilled, releases those fumes, which then getting into the body can increase our risk of cancer as well. So the American Institute for Cancer did come out with this beautiful little diagram here that's just in general saying, hey, this is what we recommend. See how it says limit alcohol consumption there? Of course, the American College of Lifestyle Medicine and the World Health Organization says don't drink it at all. They said limit the consumption of red and processed meats. Well, that makes sense with what we learned about so far. Fast foods, unfortunately, have high amounts of cholesterol and saturated fat, salt, which we all know can increase our risk of heart attack and stroke, and of course, cancer, as we're learning here. So these are just some of the things that the cancer prevention recommendations from the American Institute of Cancer has adopted as well. Their plate on what they're currently recommending is mostly plants, meaning fruits, vegetables, beans, nuts, and whole grains. And they're recommending less of the meat, less dairy, less eggs, and preferably minimally processed. And so the key word minimally means less than 7 ingredients. So when you take a look at the back of that nutrition label, if you're seeing a ton of kind of words listed there that's more than 7, probably something that's more on the higher processed side, which of course is not considered healthy for us. Now, the American College of Lifestyle Medicine does not have any meat, dairy, or eggs on the plate. So again, two separate institutions, I think, trying to reach the same goal of preventing cancer. So, okay, we talked about avoid this, avoid that, don't do that, don't do that. Well, okay, what am I supposed to do then, right? What am I supposed to eat? Well, cruciferous vegetables are considered the vegetables that are kind of sprouty. So the broccoli, collard greens, radish, arugula, kale, those types of green, thick green vegetables. We love it. We love them. They were specifically studied for cancer prevention. We know vegetables are good for various reasons, but specifically on cancer prevention who are young, healthy smokers. This is not our 90-year-old, that's been smoking for some time. This has to do with people who are in their 20s, people who are in their 30s. And so they studied that compared to people who didn't eat a lot of vegetables, who actively smoked. The smokers that were eating broccoli had less changes in their DNA that were leading to cancer, right? So the less changes in our DNA, the better. 41% after only 10 days. And they were like, holy moly. So you're telling me I don't have to eat these vegetables every day for years to have an effect? No, we found that just 10 days had a very large effect in our cancer prevention and really trying to heal these smokers, these young smokers. And so not to get deep down and detailed with this, but ROS is reactive oxygen species, meaning very inflamed and angry chemicals in our body that commonly stimulates our cells to start mutating into cancer. They found that broccoli specifically, or other cruciferous vegetables, like the ones that we listed earlier that are green and sprouty, showed that they were creating enzymes in the body or ways to break down these reactive oxygen species or general inflammation. So, wow, I mean, that's truly amazing from our standpoint. And so then they said, okay, well, is it more than just people who smoke? Absolutely. We looked at specifically women who are currently taking tamoxifen. What is that? That is a breast cancer medication. So women that have already been diagnosed with breast cancer that are taking a cancer medicine. And they found that these women who ate at least one of their 5 servings, just one of the fruits, vegetables that we talked about, lowered their risk of cancer reoccurrence by half, meaning that it was less likely for the cancer to keep coming back. So, wow, not only does eating healthy really help prevent cancer, but maybe for people that have already been treated for cancer or currently going through cancer treatments, it can decrease the cancer from coming back, slow the growth, and those types of things. Fiber. You probably hear doctors telling you should probably eat more fiber. Well, why is fiber important? Why are these things happening, right? Well, there's been numerous studies about fiber and colon cancer risk, but this one I found pretty interesting. It had to do with stool weight, meaning how much that our poop weigh. And so on average, in the United States, poop, unfortunately, does not weigh a lot. It's about 0.13 to 0.16 pounds in a day of poop, which I know sounds a little weird, but they were studying poop weight. And so people that ate more fiber, right? People that ate more fiber chunked up and bulked up the stool and made it weigh more. They had a lower cancer risk. And they're like, wait a second, why do they have a lower cancer risk if their poop weighs more? Well, they found that higher weights of poop going through the colon or our intestines not only went by quicker, but it also carried out extra cholesterol, extra salt, extra saturated fat. And because of that, that also lowered our cancer risk. So fiber, definitely a great thing. Currently, the American College of Lifestyle Medicine recommends at least 30 grams of fiber in a day. where an average American is around 5 to 10 grams. So lots of ways in which we can improve to increase our fiber.
So you wondered what we did in medical school. We were free labor for this sort of experiment, right?
Oh, yes, yes, absolutely. Hey, sign us up. Flaxseed. So flaxseed is interesting. So American College of Lifestyle Medicine, of course, we talk about fruits, vegetables, beans, nuts, whole grains, but seeds is a big category in lifestyle medicine, like flax seeds and chia seeds. So specifically, flaxseed has high level of something called ligands, and because of that, it decreases our body's sensitivity to estrogen. And you're kind of thinking, wait a minute, how is that a good thing? Well, if you relate it to breast cancer, a lot of breast cancers feed off of estrogen, feed off of those hormones. So flaxseed has been shown to help with breast cancer, which we'll get into a little bit. But of course, it also has been shown that with the extra fiber, lowers the risk of colon cancer and also reduces blood pressure. So if you got a couple points to drop on blood pressure, put in about 2 tablespoons of flaxseed a day. You'll enjoy that. So specifically, people, like we talked about, breast tissue, and the key word about this is benign. So meaning they took women that had that were never diagnosed with breast cancer, never had breast cancer, but were considered high risk because they've done biopsies before that's said, hey, this looks a little weird, but technically it's not breast cancer. They gave women 2 tablespoons, teaspoons of flaxseed daily for a year, which we all love the fiber for sure. It showed that biopsy results before and after a year, the women that took the flax seeds had fewer precancerous changes, meaning that they showed that the cells that were looking weird and funky were not growing as fast as those that did not take the flax seeds. So they found that there was a drop in general inflammation of the area and found that the cells weren't replicating and spreading as much. They also did this again, but this time with delicious muffins. So they didn't have to swallow a teaspoon of flaxseed. They have one group where women scheduled for breast surgery because they were having biopsies taken. One of them had a muffin with flaxseed daily. The other one just had a regular muffin, probably from the store. And then they were taken at different times in terms of the biopsies. And they found that women that were eating the flaxseed muffins had less cancer cells that were spreading, meaning that they were contained. They found that more cancer cells were being killed off, meaning that the cancer cells were not living as long. And then they found that it was less likely, those women that taking flaxseed were less spreading to different parts of the body. So again, it's amazing that they were kind of finding these different factors with just flaxseed that we can find at most stores. So really an awesome thing that I recommend including in your diet every day if we can. And then you hear some things about turmeric. So turmeric, that orange stuff, really great to add to a lot of your cooking. Curcumin is technically an ingredient in turmeric, which we believe is the reason for its benefit here. And so there was a study specifically done about curcumin found in turmeric specifically for cancer prevention. So this little diagram at the bottom, all the way on the left, flat is a good thing. That means that the colon is happy, nothing's growing, everything's flat. And if you look all the way towards the right, you see this little diagram of that's supposed to be a polyp, not a tree. A polyp is growing inside of the colon. And so they studied the first section, the very first circled section of a polyp growing. And they found that smokers, which are known to have an increased risk of colon cancer, were given curcumin specifically from turmeric. And they found that after 30 days, those sections of the colon that had those little bumps of polyps starting to form was reduced by almost 40%. Wow. Well, what about the in-between people? What about the people that are a little farther along the path that already have a decent amount of polyps? Well, don't worry, they studied that too. They said, well, how about curcumin plus quercetin, which is a nutrient commonly found in fruits and veggies. So they kind of combined those two, and they said that after that period of time, that same period of time, that their polyps had decreased by half. Well, holy moly, this is awesome, right? Well, what about the people that have really bad polyps that are all the way grown, concerning about cancer? And they found that, well, 15 people whose colon cancer that didn't respond to chemotherapy or radiation were started on a turmeric extract, that curcumin that we were talking about, that after a couple of months, that their cancer progress slowed down in about a third of the people. So really, I tell patients that, yes, if we have cancer, there's still some things that we can try, some things that we can do to really help prolong our life and hopefully increase our quality of life as well. So then they found out that through these studies, specifically with colon cancer, that turmeric helped prevent DNA damage, or that those mutations as well, and then also tried to keep these tumors and cancer cells from spreading. So really, I think that turmeric is a great thing to kind of add to our diet every day, in addition to flaxseed and fiber and everything that we've talked about so far.
So we talked about additives. What is your, we live in a society that loves the pills.
Yes, we do.
And, we have a lot of pills out there that are not necessarily regulated by the FDA. If you watch the evening news, a lot of them are advertised. What's your sentiment about that?
So I think we're all looking for an easy fix.
Right.
I think a lot of us, especially myself, we're looking for what is the easiest thing I could possibly do to make my life better. And I think it's easy to kind of get sucked into things found, on social media, or, television, or, from family and friends. I think that my recommendation would be to stick to supplements or herbs that have been studied appropriately. And I'm sure there's so much out there that we haven't been able to study yet, but at least we know about the turmeric and flaxseed, cinnamon, zinc. There's so much out there that we do know, that I think that holds a lot of power.
And for people who are vitamin D deficient, maybe some vitamin D as well.
Exactly. B12. Yep. Lots of supplements that we do know about that can really help us.
Thank you.
So absolutely. So there's more than just diet that we can do, kind of how I mentioned a little bit before about exercise as well. And so many studies over and over again was giving people that don't have cancer exercise, people that were just diagnosed with cancer exercise, people that unfortunately are in later stages of their cancer diagnosis exercise, and over and over and over again were multiple benefits seen by exercise. So in people that don't have cancer, it was shown to decrease the risk of ever getting cancer. For people that currently have cancer, it was shown to help decrease the risk of getting it again and again. For people that have gone through treatment, think it's gone, and then unfortunately cancer can come back. So trying to prevent cancer from coming back. But of course, exercise also helps with feeling good about ourselves, lowering our risk of having other issues like heart attacks and strokes, lowering our risk of depression and anxiety that can sometimes happen when we have cancer. So really gets our strength up. More specifically, I tell my patients every day, unfortunately, the more we sit, the quicker we die. And so this has been studied repeatedly. And this was specifically 17,000 men and women over 14 years, that people who sit all day, right, at a desk job for 12 hours, or even working from home, or maybe we're unable to work and maybe we're in a wheelchair. People who sit literally all day, unfortunately, have higher rates of death. Okay, heart attacks, strokes, cancer. So again, very important that we do our best as much as we can, even if all we have is our upper body, being able to move to really reduce our risk of cancer. More specifically, this is a graph on cardiorespiratory fitness, which means what is our fit level? How well does our heart pump blood around the rest of our body? And how well do we bring oxygen everywhere? So the red line is really fit, okay? The yellow line is, hey, our body's not doing really well from an exercise standpoint. And so the higher the graph, the better, because that's the survival rate of breast cancer patients, okay? So in the follow-up of years at the bottom, the survival rate up at the top. So again, women who have breast cancer that exercise, that are considered to be fit, doing well, doing everything they can, getting up and moving, they are less likely to pass. And so again, kind of taking a step back on exercise, for people, especially who are cancer survivors, really helps improve appetite, decreases our feeling of feeling nauseous or upset tummy, improves blood flow to our muscles, fingers and toes, decreases our risk of blood clots, which unfortunately can happen when we have cancer. So many reasons to really hone in on that exercise. So just a quick summary with everything. We talked about, foods, we talked about exercise, we talked about alcohol, maybe some supplements, some top ones that we've studied so far. Of course, this isn't all inclusive to fit in one PowerPoint, but again, here's some things overall that we do, that we have the power every day to help prevent cancer. Any questions?
Wow, really, really great summary. It's important for people to understand that these modifiable things that you can do are good to keep you healthy, but they also have the capability of reversing unhealthy.
Correct.
So
it's never too late.
There's study after study of, and you mentioned it with turmeric and whatnot, but you can make precancerous stuff. You can make, obviously, a lot of chronic diseases, diabetes and that sort of thing, get substantially better with modifiable things that you can do. I know the initial aspect of this was deny, no smoking, bad on you for drinking, don't smoke your meat. In fact, don't eat meat.
Yeah, probably should, yeah.
And so it's that, but there's something really powerful about feeling bulletproof, and feeling really healthy about yourself when you say, we do have a question. What do you think about supplemental DIM? I understand it's made of all cruciferous veggies, and I don't know what DIM is. You may have that.
So in general, the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, and I did have a slide on this, but I took it out because I was trying to prevent super long presentation here. But the American College of Lifestyle Medicine was trying to study, well, what about those pills on Amazon that's like all the fruits in one pill and like all the veggies in one pill and those types of things. And they found that supplement after supplement after supplement was not better than eating it. So our recommendation is, of course, if that's all you can do, sure, swallow the pill, but we would highly recommend that you take a bite of that apple instead of swallowing that fruit pill.
Right. And again, not regulated, don't know exactly what's in it.
Correct.
Clearly, we have a problem from the standpoint of modern medicine. It costs. Insurance companies pay for procedures. They pay for reactive type therapy. And what we think we are doing here with lifestyle medicine is being proactive.
Correct.
And, we have the ability in ourselves, without just taking pills, but with lifestyle modifications, to maintain a good health and a good quality of health and be less of a burden on the health system. And clearly there's only 5 to 10% of the cancers that we see that are truly a DNA thing that's inherited from your parents. But there's lots of family cancers. I mean, there's lots of places where there are clusters of malignancies. Maybe that you all grew up in the same environment, the same cul-de-sac or whatever. And, you understand that there's a lot of cancer that's happened to your neighbors and your family, and you want to do something about it. And you're just not sitting there as a sitting duck. There's things that Dr. Hood has described that can make a difference. So they're coming in hard
Oh,
and
I
heavy
love it.
now. And most of them are compliments.
Oh,
Are there any supplements Dr. Hood does recommend for optimal health?
so the supplements, of course, again, we'd rather you eat it. We'd rather get the micronutrients and macronutrients through foods that we eat. But of course, it's hard for everyday person to have everything we need in one day eating it with meal prepping. So if you had to rely on, okay, what supplements do I need? Vitamin B12 is incredibly important. Vitamin D, just like what we were a little bit talking about earlier, is incredibly important as well. Things like zinc, biotin, riboflavin, which is vitamin B2, thiamine, which is vitamin B1, vitamin A, vitamin E. I mean, again, a lot of these things should be in the food that you're eating. In terms of cancer prevention, turmeric and flaxseed are huge so far, that what we found out, which is why I chose to kind of include that in here today.
And I have a comment that makes you feel better. I mean, if you have that shellfish that's on the beach, you save this one.
Okay.
Thank you. I now feel self-empowered to be a strong participant with my doctors in exponentially increasing my physical and mental health.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I will say there are quite a few of us who are certified in the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. So reach out to us. We're here. There's quite a few of us that would love to help.
Great comments. I would like to plug a show that's on Netflix,
Yes.
which is looking at twins. So same DNA, and they give them different lifestyle modifications to see, how they grow up. And I think that it's called "You Are What You Eat."
Yes.
And so it's a Netflix show that you could potentially stream if you have that streaming service. The other thing I'd like to plug is the fact that in December, if you live in this area and you know where the Cancer Survivors Park is, we have a beacon of hope on top of our Center for Hope and Healing. And at not insignificant cost, that beacon has been scrubbed, and we have theatrical lighting that allows the spires of the beacon to be lit up, and we had it in Christmas colors and winter colors over the course of December, but now there'll be different colors of cancer. And in January, the cancer that is emphasized is cervical cancer, and it's represented as a very beautiful teal blue. And so if you're in the area, you can catch it from Church Street, you can catch it from Cleveland. With the trees leaves down now, you can catch it from the Falls Park entrance, and it's a really stirring thing. But that color will change every month based on the color of cancer for that month. The next episode in this series is February 8th, and we're going to talk to a gastroenterology specialist about ideas worth digesting, everything you wanted to know about the colon, and maybe some things you didn't want to know about the colon as well. And then I'll leave you, as I always do, with a quote, and this is apropos to what we've been talking about. This is a quote from, and I've given this before, but it's from the Nobel Prize winner, Bishop Desmond Tutu. There comes a point where we need to stop just pulling people out of the river. We need to go upstream and find out why they're falling in. So with that, Dr. Hood, thanks again for your lecture, an informative lecture. And again, this will be on our website, so you can look at this again and share it with your people.
Thank
And
you
for
so
that,
much.
I wish you all a very happy and healthy evening.
Thank you, guys.